Fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Lachance. Welcome to Healing Outside the Box. I am a Reiki energy healer, spiritual advisor, and teacher. I am your host for this thought-provoking series and am dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. This series is recorded and will be shown in your area on your local public service cable network. Please contact them for dates and times. If you have a group that would be interested in what I have to offer, I'm available to come to your group and teach. We will give you the contact information at the end of the show. Please visit my website and click on My TV Show, where you will find a wealth of information about this show. We will give you the website at the end of the show. These shows are now available for you to watch for free on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Healing Outside the Box to make your choices. We are constantly adding new shows, so please keep checking back. We are also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box. Please like our page for the latest information about the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Tonight is our 205th show, and the title of the show is Next Level Living Using Insight as a Guidance. And we have with us tonight a very special guest, dear, dear, dear to my heart, the woman who started this show with me almost 10 years ago, Traci Crampton. Welcome, Traci.
I'm so happy to be back. It's like a reunion.
Yeah. Traci and I started this, and we did the show for many, many years until she moved farther north in Connecticut, so she's not able to do it anymore. But we keep in touch, and it's great.
And I'm so happy that you've continued. It brings so much pleasure to my heart that you kept the torch going.
Aww.
Yeah.
I love her, guys. I really love her. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Traci. She is an intuitive advisor. And she began her path as a vocational counselor in 1994, which gave her the opportunity to work with many people in developing their careers, but found the conventional systems limiting, as they did not always serve to align people with meaningful work. She has always been very intuitive and felt these skills would be useful to incorporate into an approach with clients that could help them make more heart-centered choices. In 2002, she began to intensively study energy healing methods when challenged to seek alternatives for her young daughter who struggled with a health issue that did not respond to conventional medicine. She received training and certification. I can't say
certification
in EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and Reiki, and then decided to offer these services to others. As she utilized energy healing approaches on her clients, she recognized that she began to receive messages from increasing frequency. These messages derived from the client's personal spirit guides, guardians, and departed loved ones, and contains advice that would help a client navigate their life path, as well as provide valuable insight into the root causes of physical, emotional, and mental concerns. Through these experiences, she learned that helping a client gain a deeper level of awareness into their personal circumstances is an important first step in the healing process. She then found herself actively pursuing the development of her...
I know it's a long one.
Can't get it open. I hate these people wet their fingers, but I have no choice. And that didn't help.
Forgot it went on to the next page.
Yeah. Intuitive skills by learning the tarot channeling, dowsing, and other methods for accessing the wealth of information stored in people's energy fields. She's found the use of these divination methods extremely powerful for this purpose. She now finds her passion in combining the skills she learned as a vocational counselor, energy practitioner, and intuitive to coach people in following their dreams and finding higher purposes in their lives. Okay, well, that's how you got started.
I know, that's pretty much my path shortened up, but
yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot more to it. A little longer.
Because usually we ask you to tell us all that, remember?
Right, and part of my journey was meeting you.
Yeah.
We were partners for a while, both on the show, and also we shared an office, and that was
I walked in the door
part of my journey.
When I was first starting to do all the energy healing, when the calling came to me to do it, remember, and I walked in your door and we talked, for 20 minutes or so?
Oh, yeah.
And you handed me the key, and I said, don't you want to think about it? And you said, no,
I knew. Yeah,
you knew right away. And that friendship was sealed from that time on. And we started sharing an office together. We got along great. And then I came up with the idea about doing this show, and Traci came up with the title, the wonderful title. And we had been doing it for a long, long time. Yeah. And I continued when she left.
And so, the journey evolves. I really kind of see where my paths converge now. I've did a more conventional route of helping people, vocationally, which I still am very passionate about. I love, especially people at the crossroads, people who are like recognizing that they're not in the career or they're not in the lifestyle that feels right or aligned with them. Usually, for a number of reasons, conditioning, feeling that they should please other people or what have you. And so from a conventional standpoint, I help people find careers and do all the practical things like write resumes and, make plans for themselves and interview skills, etc. And then, I've always been fascinated with energy work and spirit, and I've always had a kind of an intuitive sense. And I found that as my path developed in that direction, that I still was really passionate about helping people with their life path and finding higher purpose, not just from the practical perspective, but also from an intuitive spiritual perspective. And as I did energy work, I was, definitely becoming more and more, I guess, the veil kind of thinned, essentially. Like I could receive messages from spirit guides and loved ones, and I feel like that kind of added a layer of information that people may not have been used to, but they found very, very useful. And so I continue to do that. I'm very visually oriented, so I love using tools like the tarot, and even when I channel, I use some tools for that kind of help to narrow into the spirit guides. But I find that it helps kind of get to the root faster, and I feel very blessed that I can work with people on that level, and rather than kind of fish around and meet a lot of dead ends, it sort of like gets to the core of the issues quite quickly.
When did you first started? When did you know that you had these psychic abilities? Intuitive and psychic abilities.
When I was very young.
Really?
My sister passed when I was 5, and shortly after her passing, I remember feeling visited, or like I felt visited by spirit. Mostly it felt like it appeared to me kind of in, I would say, floating heads, like I remember like being in my room as a child and feeling like these people were coming to me, and they were giving me messages, not necessarily like vocally, I just was kind of feeling their messages. And it's interesting because as I would share with my mother what was happening, she, as I described these people, she would tell me that they were relatives of mine that I had not met, because I would describe them in, great detail. So that happened a lot as a child, and then I think like with most people who are intuitive, there's parts in your life where you become a little more practical because it's not widely accepted. Like if you share it in school or with your peers, it's sort of a source for like a lot of raised eyebrows. So I think that results for a lot of people in kind of shutting down that skill for some time. And I know that I did that, for some time. And then it kind of comes full circle because, as I went into my adult life and had children, and my youngest daughter in particular, who had some medical issues, that kind of opened me up again to those, that alternative world, and an effort to help her. So, I'm very grateful. I think when I became a Reiki practitioner, opening that channel kind of opened back up that skill too.
What led you to Reiki?
Well, helping my daughter, I was really kind of at
looking for some natural healing?
I was. She had an autoimmune problem when she was a baby, where she couldn't digest any saccharides. Essentially, they would make her very ill, and as a result, she couldn't take any over-the-counter medications, no Tylenol or anything that, if your child has a headache or whatever, we could not do that. So I was really desperate to find some way to help her. She had a lot of digestive issues and, a lot of colic, and then, sleeping problems. And so it was like a whole big ball of wax that we had to get through. And I went to alternative methods to help her. And through that process, I regained my sense of intuitive skills, that I had kind of put in the background for a while. Yeah.
You're the fourth guest that, well, you're not the guest, but you're the fourth person who have had on the show who has started their spiritual beginnings into holistic and into spirituality and to all of that because of their children being ill. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
So these
I had always been, open-minded, and I always had an interest in alternative medicines, and but I think when the pressure was on to really practice what you preach, I had to kind of rise up to that occasion and make it a lifestyle, and I haven't turned back from that ever.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is intuitive advising?
Okay, so intuitive advising is, it's a type of mentoring or life coaching, some might say, that has it's more intuitively derived. So I use the skills that I've practiced and developed over the years in tarot and in the channeling and other divination, such as using a pendulum and angel cards and things like that to kind of access information that you may not access through your typical therapy session or counseling session. I'm very big on not that it doesn't serve a purpose to go backwards and understand where things developed, but I really feel that the faster you can get there and kind of move on from that point with a client, the better, because let's face it, we're all trying to move forward in life and move on to the next level, in a sense, to evolve. And I feel that sometimes conventional therapy can kind of stay rooted in the past a little bit too much.
Right.
And I'm a psychology major, so I know everything has its place, but I really do feel that having that intuitive information, not only does it kind of get to the root faster, but it also gives some insight into next steps. What's going to get this client to the next stage even faster. So it's like accessing another layer of information. So
I do spiritual advising, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Similar.
what I always felt that you can't help a person if purely on a worldly level. You have to add the spiritual. You can't even do it purely on a spiritual level because we have to live in the world. So you and I, we do it from a spiritual and a worldly level, right? Combine the both to help the person to learn about their problems and everything,
And if somebody's at a crossroads, or they're changing careers, or they're ending relationships, it's it's an opportunity for major transformation, and it's really I feel our role is to make this meaningful. Just don't go from one track to the next without it leading you to like a higher purpose or more meaning or some kind of evolution in your life.
That's right.
I think
That's
that
good,
sometimes people kind of hop around. They spend their life hopping around from like one job to the other or one relationship to the other. And, they never really find their soul's desire, doing that. So
you're right. You're absolutely right. I wonder how many people thought of it that way. That's a good way to think of it. That's the truth. And people don't think
like having, more access to, the spiritual insight and intuitive information, then you can kind of center that client in a bigger picture, like how, what do you really want? What's your soul's desire? What's your heart's desire? As opposed to like, what feels practical, what feels like, what you've been told you should want or what society wants you to have.
And what you want, right?
Right.
Difference, yeah. That's right. Because that's what we're all searching for. That inner peace and happiness meaning. And more meaning in our life. And spiritual is that's where that enters in because that's where it is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. About your journey on becoming an intuitive advisor, what made you start doing that? Because of your teachings? Well,
I think that it's sort of, it's interesting, and I probably have shared on, former shows, is that I didn't go into it, I kind of went reluctantly, like I was always very open to the alternative medicines and ways of healing. But opening up that intuitive side of me again, took a little courage, and I think a lot of people in these fields kind of feel the same way. You sit on the fence for a while because you want to be taken seriously. Like I'm also very scientific. Like I love science, and so
yes, I remember that about you.
And so to say, hey, I can see where they connect, or I can see that they combine. It took me a lot of courage to kind of find my voice in that. But I feel like I was pulled down that road because of, practicing energy healing. Naturally, like that channel opened up again.
Yes.
And I was giving, the messages. I felt compelled, to tell people what the messages I was receiving for them. And just over time with getting more and more confirmation, like, yes, that's accurate. And I guess I became more courageous, but I still wasn't seeking to do, that intuitive work professionally until clients started asking for it more and more. And now, that's probably a big part of what I do. I still do the energy healing, but the mentoring, the coaching from that intuitive angle is kind of taking the forefront right now.
I think we talked about this. It was like the same for you and I. When these messages started coming when we were doing the energy healing, I remember thinking, gee.
Do I tell this person?
What if I'm way off? I mean, this doesn't sound, what should I do?
I know, some of it feels very foreign or ridiculous. And I sort of just preface it now where, like, I'm getting this message and it may sound really ridiculous, but here it comes because, I'm so surprised how often people will confirm, yes, that's exactly it.
Me too.
Because that was so unique and unusual information, I believe I get that, you're really, hearing or receiving something that is profound for me. So over time you get more courageous.
You get to trust it, That's what we have to do. You have to trust that. That's all. Right. That's what it really is.
And I tell people, even if something doesn't resonate right now, store it because it may come up in the future and this may be useful information for something down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. You like that. So how does this differ from being a psychic or a medium?
Okay, yeah, this is kind of where I get tripped up a little bit because, I think once you work intuitively with people, especially if you use the tools like tarot and, pendulums, which, I'm a very visual person, so I like those tools. I feel like they help me to access things in a more sensory way. However, because those tools are often used by psychics and mediums, and I guess, I could be considered a psychic or a medium on some level, but I really find that by kind of being put in that particular box, it limits me, and my goal is not really necessarily like fortune telling,
right?
Or even when I connect with spirit, I firmly feel that the purpose for that is for that individual's growth, and so my focus is always on the healing, on the growth. If someone comes to me and I'm getting information about their past or about what's happening for them currently, that's an opportunity to open them up to, something maybe they hadn't heard before, something deeper within them that needs to come to the surface. And even when, I tell people when I do readings for them, because I do a lot of hour-long readings, and a lot of people do come to me kind of because they've heard somebody else say, oh, she's a psychic or she's a medium. And, I remind them that, things of the future may come up, but it's really kind of from the perspective of, where are you vibrating now? I like to tell, my clients that it's as if you're, you go outside your house, say you go out your front door and it's nighttime, and you look up at the starry sky, from your front door. And some stars are really, really bright and others are dim. And the bright ones are like your highest potentials based on the direction you're looking and what's catching your attention, okay? So that's essentially what I'm seeing when somebody comes. I'm kind of reading their energy, picking up on, what's in their field, whether it's loved ones who've passed or their story, and I'm kind of seeing the direction they're facing and what potentials they're focused in on. But I always remind people, like, you are in the driver's seat. You're in the driver's seat of your life, and if you consciously take that role as a driver, you can change direction. You can go out your back door and look at a whole different sky, essentially, different set of stars, different potentialities. So when I'm doing a reading and I'm seeing these things, if it's something somebody doesn't want to, they're worried about the lesson or this is going to be hard, I'm like, these are your choices. You have free will. You can change this. So I'm just bringing this to your awareness because I can see this is this is what you're expecting. This is the direction you're going, whether you're conscious of it or not, so.
That's true. Like we had talked about, if you may tell them this is what's going to happen down the road, so to speak, like a psychic will tell them.
I would say this is a high probability based on today, the direction that you're heading today.
So if you all of a sudden learn something new or have a change of heart or something changes, that whole thing cancels and it's a new path, right?
Right.
It's a new path that you're
And
going to follow.
sometimes I advise people, try to, when you do come in for an appointment, try to come in kind of a neutral, mood, because if you're very anxious, if you're very fearful, I will pick up on that, and that's the energy that I see. And if it's not your typical mode of operation, if that's not how you usually are every day, you could get a reading that is aligned with the energy that's unusual for you, so you don't want to come in for a reading when you're super anxious or you're super fearful, because that's kind of what I'll be seeing in your energy field. Not that I won't see other things too. I think a good intuitive can kind of see, even if the tarot cards say that oh, this looks like you're attracting some stuff that's really heavy. A good intuitive will kind of see the rest of the story in your field too. But
everyone has an aura around them, right? And they don't realize that. And all this is going wherever you go. It's all like going with you.
It's in your field.
Yes. Your energy.
We are energy. Like technically, we look like matter. We look solid, but
we're not.
We're just made up of atoms that are all space. So.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're like an energy reader, an intuitive advisor. Will pick up on, what is happening in that.
Spaces. Isn't that
energy.
something like that quantum physics?
Yeah, I love.
I know how you
quantum
love
physics,
quantum
yeah.
physics. Yeah.
And I've been
Tell us a little bit about
teaching
that.
a lot more about that to my clients, which is kind of where I come up with the title of the show with that next level living. Is that you in quantum physics, it's essentially the premise is that we live in a sea of potentialities. Like there's hundreds of ways that things could go. Quantum physics is about waves and particles. There are all these waves, and until we draw attention or we focus on a wave, it does not become manifest. So once we focus and give something our attention, it turns into reality. So it becomes a particle, rather than a wave. So if you take that into the lesson of our daily lives, what we expect, what we focus on is what we're going to get, essentially.
Essentially.
So, it seems like such a simplistic, lesson, but, for most of us, it's very hard, because the mind kind of has a lot of chatter and wants to kind of lead us in its own direction, and a lot of times because of our stories and our tragedies and illnesses and whatnot, we get in these patterns where we forget that we're creators, and we tend to keep expecting the same thing, and so we get the same thing. We get stuck in these cycles, always manifesting over and over the same kind of relationship, the same kind of job, the same kind of aches and pains and whatnot. So
how do they break that cycle? You tell them how to
well,
break that?
it's about choice and intention, and bringing consciousness to your everyday life, because most of us are living on autopilot, you know, and the more conscious you are, and the more you make choices and intend for things to come into your life, the more you'll see them. Again, it's the direction you're facing. What are you looking at? A
friend of mine told me this great saying, which I've never forgotten, and I always say it too. Something like, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've gotten. Yeah. And that's about it exactly.
That's so true. So these, and there's a certain level, it changes very hard, even if people are miserable, it's what's familiar to them.
Exactly.
And what's comfortable. But eventually your comfortable shoe gets holes in it, and you're walking in the water with wet feet, and so change is needed. And sometimes I like to work with people where they're really at that point where they're ready for change.
You're right about that. Being comfortable in your misery, you really are. I saw a movie like that with Robin Williams, where he came over from Russia in the United States, and he always wanted to do that, and then he complained about everything here. And the man said to him, he said, "I'm going to go back to Russia where I was happy." He said, "What are you talking about? You were happy. You were miserable."
Right.
And Robin said, "Yeah, but it was my misery, and I loved it." That's just what you said right now, and that's true. What people do, as long as it's comfortable, like an old shoe, until
it gets so unbearable that they need to change, and or they recognize, they know, on some deeper level that, in their soul, that this is not what they were meant to do, and life is ticking away, and they want to not die with the music in them, so and I find that a lot of people kind of middle age, that happens a lot at that juncture where we reevaluate, why, who are we doing this for, why are we on this path that doesn't feel right, and they decide to make a change, and it's tough, but change is important.
Change is hard. We like to feel comfortable. Change is very hard. I know that. What was that other saying? You're not going to. It was a beautiful saying that said you're not going to change until the pain of remaining the same outweighs the pain of change.
Right.
You won't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I do feel that people who are more consciously living, see change differently, and I think that they welcome change a little more.
Well, I'm talking about,
people who are
probably half of the population, but then there's the other half who, like you said, I can't do this.
They're bringing more consciousness to their life, and They're all about the change and understanding the bigger picture of the change, which I think you and I talked about earlier, which is, I think part of why, everybody's so sick and miserable, in this world is because they haven't really learned to adapt, They haven't really learned to, exercise their power of creating change in their life.
How does your coaching model differ from that of other life coaches?
Okay, so I think I may have touched on this a little already, but the intuitive piece is definitely different. I think a lot of life coaching really focuses on like getting that job that makes the bank, and not that I'm against that. I think everybody should live an abundant life, but a meaningful life. A meaningful life, that is really the key, and a purpose-filled life, and something that, feels very aligned with their spirit. And so I think the intuitive piece is making sure that the coaching involves, that sense of, let's look at, what is your higher purpose? What does your soul long for? What, even kind of looking a little bit into, what limiting beliefs do you have, that are getting in your way, and how can we kind of clear those up and heal those?
That's true.
So that you, have more flow. Forward. So the intuitive piece, I use a lot of my tools to kind of access that information in what would probably be, not so conventional for your typical life coach, but
yeah, probably not. I don't know if we touched. I'm not sure. I think we touched a little bit on it, but the types of life situations that you help people with.
Oh yeah, so. Like I said, I like to be there kind of like in the crossroads for people. And that comes at many different points in our life. It could be, a student who's leaving high school to go to college, or a college student who's, getting out into the world. I've worked with all ages of people, even in my older profession. I worked with a lot of students in that case, and I love the students because they're full of life and the possibilities ahead of them. But I also love working with like middle-aged people who have been kind of marching to the beat of somebody else's drum all their life, like in this zone of like responsibility and obligation, and feeling like this is what they should do, this is what their parents condition them, for, this is, what their family needs. I can't leave this job because, my family's depending on it. And their soul is so thirsty, they're so hungry for like true meaning in their life, and you see like people getting ill because like physically ill because they're going to like jobs they don't like, or they're in relationships that are just toxic.
That's true.
And, I like to be there for them, not only as like a guide, but as a comfort, and as a cheerleader to let them know that, they can change their lives. And it can change faster sometimes than they are even prepared for, which is interesting because of the whole, idea of quantum physics. Like you can get on, that other potentiality just through choice and intention, and bring that into your life faster than you can imagine. But, sometimes preparing people for how rapidly change can happen is part of the process. Because, we think that everything happens in this linear, steady way. But, when it comes to change, it could be like one day, this is your life, and then the next day it's something else. And in particular, if people are, hoping for a radical change in their life, I want to be there, like, to let them know, they have a safety net when they take that leap of faith, even if they can't see it. You have spirit guides, you have universal energy, that's just always got your back. It's always looking for your best interest, and as long as you're listening to your heart song, like, it's going to take care of you.
You have to ask for help.
Right.
Just ask for it, and it'll be given to you. You have to do that, though.
Absolutely.
You have to invite the help in. Like the angels, the guides, they won't help you unless you ask them to.
Right. You have to give
They
permission.
won't interfere.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you think people should read about quantum physics?
Yeah, well, I think that it would definitely help. I mean, it is sort of a very nice, pairs very nicely with the law of attraction. If I know a lot of people are beginning to understand that a little bit more, that there are universal laws, and whether we see, like for instance, gravity or electricity, we can't see it, but we depend on it.
Right.
And so there are other laws of the universe as well that even though we can't see them, they're there. And, typically the only way we can prove that they're there is by playing with the theories, is to play around with the theories and to test them out and see how they work in our own lives. And I've seen it work in my life. I've seen these things work in my clients' lives. And it's kind of fun. It's like entertaining, and it can be a game, to just test it out on a smaller level until you get comfortable. And
maybe I'm asking an impossible question, but is there any way that you could give an example of someone using the quantum physics or how that can apply?
So in quantum physics, some of my recent reading has been about changing your lifeline, essentially. There's this theory that time doesn't exist. Okay, so
Yes,
like what we see
out
is
more and more lately.
what we see is past, present, future is all happening at once. So they compare that to like if you're looking at a reel of film, like you can take the film out and you could see the individual frames and they're all existing there in front of you at the same time. But time serves a purpose because, like without time, we would probably do a lot of damage to ourselves and others. You know what I mean? It's really my thought and kind of along the lines of these theories as well that time and space are a buffer because as humans, if we are attracting our reality, if we are creating our reality through our thinking, through our thoughts, and we're not so good at it yet.
No, we're not.
We have a lot of fear. We have a lot of anxiety. We have a lot of anger and resentment towards other people. And if time and space didn't exist, that stuff would manifest in an instant, and we'd do a lot of damage. As it is, I think we're evolving, so the need for time and space will soon dissolve, as we become more heart-centered and we start living from that place, and really our intentions are good and our thoughts are, aligned with our heart, our minds are aligned with our heart. I don't think there'll be a need for time and space, because when, we will be creating a new Eden then, but until then, time and space serves us. But essentially, it's there as an experience in this dimension that we're currently living in. But there are other dimensions. I believe in that, and I think that there are other realities, and you can shift realities if you intend it. So.
I've read we live in a three-dimensional world, but on the other side of life, it's seven-dimensional. Yeah, it's seven-dimensional over there. I don't know what the other ones are, but that's what I had read.
Right. And once we really understand that we are creating, with our thoughts. I mean, I think people are learning more and more about that, which I feel really happy about. But as we truly understand that and understand how we're all connected, we're going to see like some really big leaps, and hopefully for the good.
What do you think is happening now out in the world? There's so much anger out there. There's so much lack of respect. People don't respect themselves. They don't respect others. They don't respect animals. They don't respect anything. And the anger and the fighting.
But on the flip side of that coin, there is huge spiritual growth. There's tremendous works of art. There's tremendous compassion in this world too. I honestly feel, my theory is that like we're in a quickening. Like we, as civilization. We started out very, very slow, like in our primitive years.
Yeah.
Things moved very slow, like change did not come quickly. But as we progress as a civilization, it's like a spiral or like a funnel that's kind of like, we go around and we kind of see some of the same stories over and over again, but it's getting faster and faster as we kind of move down this funnel. And at the same time, if you think about the funnel as like one of those coin funnels, and the penny in it is always flipping head tails as it goes around. And I think of that head tails as like the contrast that we live in, and you see that over time as we're going around this funnel. You'll see periods where we were at peace and periods where we're at war, and they seemed stretched out for many hundreds of years. But now we're in a tighter reality. And so not only it feels chaotic because it's going so fast.
Yeah.
And we can see, you can see an example of like tremendous love and an hour later see an example of like the most horrific hate crime. It's in our face. That contrast is in our face night and day and night. And, as technology increases and everything speeds up, it just makes it even more part of our moment to moment reality. But I think that it's always been there. It's just happening faster and more, because of technology, it's more apparent to us.
I've read where the Earth is spinning faster. We can't feel it because we're all on that same time thing.
Right.
But if people really stop to think sometime about the fact that, gee, that went by so fast. Gee, that went by so fast. And
it's not just a side effect of aging.
No,
it's happening to everybody.
It really is. Yeah. I once did an experiment. I put there was sun shining on the window, through the window. On the table. So I put a cup over there where the sun was, right in the middle of the sun, to see when it would move. Boy, 5 minutes later, it was really in a different position, completely, almost totally off. I said, "Whoa, that was fast."
But it is, and I mean, literally, people are feeling dizzy, lightheaded. They're feeling the effects of that, and people feel like their lives are in chaos. And really, kind of, the recommendation there is like we need to learn how to let go, like to surrender, because we're fighting against that. We're fighting against that pull, and I honestly feel like it's like a birth canal. Like we are being kind of like brought from one dimensional reality into another, and as we do that, as we get kind of tighter down that funnel or that canal, the more baggage you have, the more fear you have, like we're being stripped of that, like, because you can't fit through there. You can't fit through there and into another dimension with all that baggage. And so we see like smaller examples of that in our life too. I mean, this is something that's happening more cosmically, but we're I always think of like the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Right.
There's that we're the drop of ocean in the ocean, and there's the ocean. So you have to remember that even as this is happening more cosmically, it's also happening on a very personal level too, So like learning how to let go, learning how to surrender, and just know and expect that you're going to make it through this, okay? That you're adaptable, you're flexible, you're going to be rebirthed into a new reality without harm, without hurt, unless you go fighting. They always say, like, when you fall, don't tighten up because your muscles are going to be bruised and battered. Like, if you go fighting, it's going to fight you back,
I think that fear is very prevalent in the world today.
Yeah,
and fear
absolutely.
may be one of the things that causes people to fight against this. It causes the anger and everything.
It's unsettling, when things speed up and we're seeing this contrast every day. I think it's our natural response to fight, unless you're again, live in more consciously and recognize that the fighting is not going to help you. Yeah, but it's scary. People are really afraid. They're really frightened, and you know, there's a lot out there. If your direction is at, you know, that area of the sky, you know, like, you know, if you're focused and you're constantly feeding into that energy and that fear, you're going to keep seeing more of that, you know. So you have to really consciously look for, you know, what you want to see, you know. It's like, you know, when you decide you're going to, you know, find money on the ground, you got to, you know, you're looking on the ground, you'll find it. You've drawn your awareness, your expectations to a different level, you know, so you're gonna pick it up. You're gonna see those pennies and those dimes and those dollar bills laying on the ground. But, you know, otherwise, if you're not conscious of it, you just be looking in other directions and never see, you know, what's at your feet. So
I think the news has a lot to do with it. They feed that to the people, and the people buy into all that. And I stopped to think, I said, wait a minute, this is just a small group here.
Right.
Or this is just a person here.
It's not everything.
The whole it's not the whole world.
Whole world.
But they make it seem like it's the whole world, you know, and
yeah,
everything.
well, they
but
sensationalize it. But you have a choice. You know, like I'm not ignorant to what's going on in the world, but I have learned to be detached from it. Because I feel that if I allow it to, like, provoke me or get me riled up, like, I'm perpetuating that. Because, you know, we live in, you know, we're all connected, and as we if we kind of all feed into that paradigm, you know, it's going to grow, you know, and
that's what's happening.
That fear is going to feed it, and it's not what we want, you know, that's not what we're hoping for, but you know, it's kind of like with the law of attraction that teaches, you know, what you focus on, you receive. So rather than saying, like, oh, you know, I don't want to be poor anymore, you know, like the universe is hearing poor. They're hearing that sense of lack. It's tapping into your vibration of lack and poverty. So that's what you're going to get. Even though you're saying, I don't want that, I'm fighting against that, you're attracting it to you. So, you know, the key is to focus your attention where you want it to be, like what you want to see, and you will see examples of that. If you say, I want to see beauty and kindness and you know, love and tenderness in your world, you will see that. That will be your experience.
That's right. That's absolutely right. It said, as far as those other things, poor or whatever, focus on your... it was a book about the angels. They said, focus on your needs rather than your wants.
Right. And it's really like, you know, the universe reads your vibration through your feelings, you know, not your words. So even if you say, you know, I want to be happy, if you're like saying it and feeling so miserable and unhappy, you know, the universe is feeling the emotion, not necessarily the words. So unless, you know, you're saying words that really make you feel energized and aligned, you know, that's the key. And I in my coaching and mentoring with people, we focus on that a lot. Like, you know, I know people are big on affirmations, but if those affirmations don't make you feel that way, they're not the right affirmations for you. You have to be, you know, vibrating that feeling. You really need to. And so I work with people in terms of stepping up to that belief. Like, you may come in being like, you know, like in need of a lot of healing, you know, whether it's emotional or physical, and you really can't focus beyond your problem at that time, you know, it's consuming you. So I'll start there with a client, you know, like let's say, you know, even though I have this problem, and this is a big part of EFT, I love, you know, I'm going to learn to love myself, or I'll love myself in spite of this problem, because what happens is we perpetuate that because we feel like a failure, or we feel, you know, like unworthy of change, you know. So to get a client to the point where they can recognize that, yeah, there's some shortcoming or there's some healing work that needs to be done, but they can love themselves in spite of that. It kind of like breaks the cycle, you know? And so that's a place to start. But then you want to get from like, you know, you want to bring your client from, like I am, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a common problem, like that people come to me with, like, I'm so unhappy in my job. My job's miserable. It's making me sick. To, like, I am living, the life of my dreams, or I am living on purpose, like it's hard to kind of like jump from here to here for most people. You can, if you can really like, change that trajectory quickly, but for the most part you have to step up. Like, so I'll work them through like, okay, breaking the cycle of their problem to, kind of opening their eyes up to other potentials, to like I am statements like I am successful, or I am happy, or I am, bliss, but you can't get from there to there very, most people can't get to there overnight, so unless you have like a spiritual awakening, which happens to people where like in a flash they kind of have that opening that
to people.
But for most of us, we kind of have to like baby step in that direction. And some people are so entrenched in the problem, they want to stay there. And like, I feel like my job is to move them, into a different mindset.
Lately, the very old prayer that I think it's associated with Alcoholics Anonymous, God grant me the strength.
Prayer.
Yeah, the serenity prayer. And you say those words, grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change. Now that's important, because that can drive you crazy when you think you got to change. You got to do. What am I going to do? I got to change. I got to change it. You don't have to change it. You just have to accept it.
Well, acceptance is huge, because I mean, it's not that you can't change your future reality.
No, I don't mean that. I mean,
but the present reality is the present reality, and it's a result of our previous thinking. We create, whether we want to, and I know there's going to be arguments here, because sometimes people are like, what about the disabled or sick people, or karmic, it may be their soul contract, and I get that from a different level, but our current reality is the effect. It's the effect of like previous thinking and previous lifestyle, and there's nothing to do but accept it, because it's here. There's no fighting against it, but it doesn't mean that this is where you need to stay.
Right. Well, the rest of it goes on when you say, give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change,
and the power to change,
and the courage to change the things that I can't.
Right.
But the last line is the most important, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right? Because there's some things you can change, and some things you can't change. So you have to know which it is, and you have to accept what can't be changed, and then you can make that become a better place. By doing that, right? So that's it. And that's been coming to me because I was caught up on all the things that were going on in the world, and I said, I can't do this because it's changing my personality, and I'm getting angry and everything. And then that prayer came to me, and I know it was from the angels. Just remember that prayer, and I thought, that's right. You can't do anything about this, so leave it alone.
And I always say, clean up your side of the street or change your corner of the world, because
that's it.
We're all connected. So if you take care of your own business, it's going to have a positive effect on the whole of our society, civilization, world. But I also, I forget where I was going to go, because you made me think of something with that prayer, and surrendering. I think we always feel like we got to fix everything. First of all, there's a couple points I have on surrendering. One is that, we always feel like we got to fix. Like, we put our ego in there. We got to like make it better.
You're right.
And you know what? Like, the universe is magical. If we could just take a back seat and do less efforting, that's what I teach my clients a lot. You don't need to effort so much, we have so much spirit and, universal law around us that will take care of a lot of that business for us. It's our efforting, I think, that creates even more problems in this world, and our ego thinking this is the way it should be, this is how it's got to be, these are the expectations I need to impose. But it's a pattern we gotta.
My prayer now is, okay, I don't like this or that or the other, but I say, God, I said, if you want me to do something about a certain situation,
show me the action to take. Yeah. Show me the solution. Yeah.
Yeah. Show me how to do it. Tell me that I should do something, and then tell me how to do it. But because I have to stop worrying about everything.
All for action, but sometimes we're just, taking all these different actions, and we're back at square one all the time because they're not producing results.
Right.
But that's part of intuitive advising. Like if you can teach somebody to ask that question before they act, or to get themselves into alignment with their emotions and their feelings and their heart before they act, you'll be spending a lot less time trying hard, beating down doors, trying to make things happen. It'll happen more quickly, definitely.
People are definitely not used to consulting with spirit, God, angels before they do anything. They got out of that for some reason because of the way the world is right now. But then there are people who are doing it more.
Right.
So, I say, which
That's
one
that contrast, that flipping penny.
Which one are you? Are you the one who are doing it more now and connecting with the spiritual side of your life? Or are you the one that's just going out like blind and just saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take care of that, and it's going to be my way, and I'm going to fix it?
Yeah.
Which are you doing?
And I always think, it's not, there's practical things that need to be done. There's action that needs to be taken. We can't just sit and everything is going to land in our lap. I mean, part of using your intuition and, relying on spirit is knowing when to act and acting when you get, the signs to act and, acting quickly and effectively. So it's not just sitting back and, letting things come to you. There's a lot of practical things that I teach people outside of more of the spiritual intuitive stuff, because it both sides matter, and I always tell people it's a dance between fate and free will. I do believe we're here to learn certain lessons, and maybe we even had the will to choose them before we came here. But how we learn them is really up to us. So people, it's not one, way or the other. It's a dance between the two. And so,
we can even pray that. I say it myself. What is my mission? We can't remember it because it would be like cheating. Help me to realize my mission and help me to accomplish it in this lifetime. All right? Because whatever I came here for. See, that's the problem. If you don't have those spiritual beliefs, it's really hard in this world today. It's really hard to navigate. It really is.
Because we're being forced to, a lot of the practical, the ways, I was going to say. The old ways of doing things are not working anymore.
That's right.
They worked for a while for, many, many centuries, but people are finding they're not working anymore. So what next,
That to me is the difference between religion and spirituality.
Yes.
Religion teaches us about punishing God. Religion teaches us we should be ashamed of what we're doing. It makes us feel bad. It's fear-based. They use fear to control. It's mostly fear-based, and that's how they make you do things, and you feel like you're going to be punished. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. Those are the words that you're not worthy, you're not good enough. And those things have a big effect, especially on children as you're growing up. Yeah. The choice of words that you use like that are very important. So that's why.
Right. And I think everybody's got their journey, and sometimes that's part of a person's journey is to have that, religious experience, and, and I get that, community and connectedness, but I also think that as we evolve, we have to open our minds more and more,
All right, sweetie, we have to close now.
Wow, that was quick.
Wasn't it quick?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. We're going to give your contact information and ours. Can't believe it.
I know.
For Healing Outside the Box and me, Rosemary Lachance, my phone number is 203-627-7966. The email is whitebuffalo8@comcast.net. And my website, where you can find out all this information, is www.rosemarylachance.com. And for Traci Crampton, her phone number is 203-232-3405. Her email is tdcrampton@gmail.com. Her website is www.traci, TraciCrampton.com.
Thank you.
It was so wonderful having you back. It's just like old times.
I know.
Good night,
I miss
everyone.
this. Good night.
Mwah.
Fear's not allowed. We're dreaming.